Living fully alive in every way. You're listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol.
Hello, friends. It's Dr. Carol, and welcome to Relationship Prescriptions. I so enjoy bringing these messages to you. Today, I am going to address one of you who wrote me a letter about a very distressing marriage situation, and I want to address those concerns here because I believe these ideas will be helpful to you whether or not this is your specific challenge. This also reminds me that if you have a question or a challenge or an issue that you would like me to address, I love responding to your questions or challenges. You can leave me a message at drcarolministries.com/podcast. I love hearing from you, and I read each message personally. This message came from Andrea. She said, "Please advise me on how to better communicate my needs to my husband. We've been married 9 years. He's not a believer, which puts a huge strain on our marriage. Every time we have conflict and I get emotional, I feel like I've failed as a Christian wife. He sometimes says, 'What good does your faith do you?' I know if he was a believer, he would not think the way he does. For me, I have a great need for affection and regular sex, but he's the gatekeeper. He has admitted he can sometimes be selfish. He knows my needs, but only seems to want to give when it suits him. This makes me feel so powerless in our marriage. He recently told me about his past, and it made me even more insecure. He was involved with a lot of women before me, and I feel constantly under pressure. I feel like he's always comparing me with them. I pray regularly and ask the Lord to show me what he wants to teach me in these struggles. I love my husband dearly, and I want a great marriage. I really need some support." Well, Andrea, thank you for your message. I hear how much of a struggle this is. If I were with you in person, I'd ask to give you a great big hug. You need that kind of nourishment for your soul. So thank you for reaching out. I want to talk about 2 or 3 things in your note. First, being a Christian married to someone who is not a believer is always challenging. But I want to leave you with this perspective too. Simply being married to a believer does not eliminate the need to learn skills, doesn't meet all your needs. There are many, many believers where husband and wife are both Christian believers, where their marriage is extremely troubled. So whether or not your spouse is a believer, it's important that you intentionally invest in learning the skills necessary in marriage. Things like communication, things like how to meet each other's needs, how to take care of your own needs when your spouse can't, how to get your own soul filled up. And we'll talk about some of that here in just a minute. It's important to learn skills of intimacy. Intimacy is not automatic. There has been a false belief that many in the Christian community have promoted, and that is that if you save yourself for marriage and you and your spouse are both virgins and you both love Jesus when you get married, intimacy is going to be wonderful. Sadly, that's not true. It takes learning those skills. There are skills of handling conflict in marriage that are difficult to learn. When you get married, it is almost impossible to not repeat some things that you learned and experienced in the past. We grow up in a family where we see conflict and how that conflict is addressed or not addressed, whether people, when they get upset, explode in anger, or whether they stuff it and don't address it. We see ways of communication, healthy or unhealthy. We see modeled for us ways of doing intimacy, whether or not that's the physical aspects, but all the components of intimacy. We see those things modeled, and we come to marriage with assumptions. All those skills are important to learn, whether or not your spouse is a believer. So my first encouragement to you is look for the skills that you can develop and learn, regardless of whether your husband is invested in learning the same things right now or not. Your own heart and your marriage will be more peaceful and more satisfying, dependent on how you respond with learning those skills. Now, specifically about your husband being a non-believer, yes, that's painful. And yes, following Jesus does create some really important understandings and bonds and things in a person's heart. I would encourage you to prayerfully ask yourself this question, and ask it in your time with God. Who does God need you to be to your spouse right now? How does he need you to respond? You talked about feeling like you often fail as a Christian wife. None of us do this perfectly. Marriage is a challenge in learning to love well. But asking yourself, who does God need you to be to your spouse right now, can help you focus on the right things. Who you become, the person you continue to grow into, will be the biggest advertisement for the kingdom of God to your husband. He will remember how you changed, how you respond, who you become in this ongoing process of life and growth. He will remember that much more than any words you say. So when there is conflict and when you don't respond as you wish that you might have, own that, acknowledge it. You investing in becoming the best version of you that God needs you to be will be that best advertisement for the kingdom of God to your husband. Andrea, you talked about finding out about his past, and certainly it would have perhaps smoothed some things over if you had understood more previously, but you're here now. And here's what I want to challenge you about. Feeling insecure when it seems like your husband may be comparing you with others or not meeting your needs. It's very easy to get our identity from the people closest to us. When we grow up as children, we get our identity from our parents usually. And in intimate personal relationships, it is so easy to continue to look to your spouse for a reflection of who you are, for a sense of who you are, for messages about your identity. But so much more important it is to learn to get your sense of identity from God. This doesn't lessen the emotional turmoil that you feel over finding out these things about your husband's past and feeling compared to other women. But for your own heart, for the healing and growth that your own heart needs, I would encourage you to spend some intentional time in God's presence, you and him, asking God to show you how he sees you. What does God say about you? To intentionally invest in getting your identity from him. Now, this can sound kind of super spiritual, and it's not intended that way at all. Our human emotions are real. The things that the people close to us do and say and their behavior impacts us. But there are no human people around to have relationships with. It's important for all of us, whether our marriage is healthy or not healthy, frankly, to learn to get our deepest sense of identity from God himself. So do some Bible studies. Take some time in prayer. Invest in Christian resources, listening to this podcast, for example, or books or conferences or whatever, specifically for the purpose of hearing what God says about you. And when you start feeling those messages from your husband or anyone, that you're not measuring up, that you're not good enough, that there's some way in which you're less than, that you have failed, put a little stop sign in front of your mind. Intentionally point your mind then to what you have learned that God says about you. As part of that, I'd encourage you to get into God's presence, ask God that question, and then just be silent. Just wait there in His presence for a period of time and listen to what He has to say to you, about how He sees you, about how He created you, about how He loves you and needs you and has a purpose for you. Let your heart hear from Him directly, a special word just for you. Intentionally invest in those times. Doing that will give you more resilience in your own soul in meeting some of these challenges. Along with that, I want to give you the idea of learning to feed yourself. You've talked about some needs for affection and regular sex that your husband is not meeting for you at this time. Many of us, I think probably almost every married person, naturally looks to their spouse to meet their needs. In the ideal marriage, many of our needs are met. But in every marriage, good or bad, there are needs we have that our spouse cannot meet. Needs that only God can meet. Think of it this way. God makes an infinite variety of food available. He knows that our bodies need food, and there's an infinite variety available. God puts fish in the sea, but He does not bake the fish and put it on your plate. He makes the grain grow in the field, but He doesn't grind it, bake bread, and hand you a sandwich. We are responsible to know when we're hungry. Some food tastes better than others. Some food is healthier and more nourishing than others, but we're responsible to choose our food, to find it, prepare it, and decide to take it into our being. We need emotional, relational, and spiritual nourishment as well, on an ongoing, regular basis. God makes an infinite variety of emotional, relational, and spiritual food available, but just like with physical food, we're responsible for knowing when we're hungry, for finding that food, choosing it, and deciding to take it into our being. Yes, you need affection. You need that sense of connection. And certainly the only legitimate place to get sex is with your husband, but there are so many more aspects to those needs in your heart that you can legitimately look for places to get that kind of food, that kind of nourishment for your soul. That may look like time with positive people, time with godly girlfriends who can just love you and you can love back. Other nourishment can be like inspiring media, books, Christian or inspiring TV programs, podcasts, all kinds of internet resources. There's an infinite variety of inspiring media available. Be intentional about that. Entertainment is fine, but intentionally look for those things that fill up the places in your soul where you need it. Other ways to find that kind of nourishment may be time in nature, time in God's green earth can nourish your soul in special ways. And of course, time with God Himself. There's nothing that nourishes your soul in its deepest areas more than God Himself. I pray and hope that those ideas, Andrea, give you some concrete ways that you can move forward and find some nourishment and some healing for the places in your soul that need that. And I am confident that as your own soul grows and becomes nourished and healthier and happier, that it will have a positive impact on your marriage. As you become a stronger, happier, healthier person, that can be an incredible, first of all, an invitation for your husband to join you in that journey, and also just create a lot more peace and joy around you in your life and in your home. For all of you listening, these ideas are some that many marriages can benefit from. There's a couple of resources that we have available that I would like to suggest for you. On our website, we have a collection of some of our most requested relationship resources on our page, Healthy Relationships. If you go to drcarolministries.com/healthy-relationships, you can find a collection of our most requested resources. And I hope you check that out. Especially for communication in marriage, we have a ebook that I also believe can be very helpful. Communication is the number one challenge that married couples say they struggle with. On our website, you can go to drcarolministries.com/talk/TALK, and you can find information there about our guide to healthy communication in marriage. Check out those resources, and I know you'll be able to find some help for your marriage. Thank you so much for joining me here on Relationship Prescriptions. I love hearing from you. You can leave me a message on our website. Also invite you to tell your friends about the podcast. And until next time, may God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Relationship Prescriptions with Dr. Carol. Our purpose is to provide trustworthy resources that help you and others live fully alive in every way as God intended. If you would like to help others experience transformation in their lives and relationships, we invite you to partner with us. Text the word GIVE, that's GIVE, to the number 512-980-1620. Or visit our website at drcarolministries.com/donate to make a one-time contribution or monthly gift. Your financial support allows us to expand our message and to help others. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.